Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, Mr. Michael Hall. The title of tonight's episode is the Bittersweet Beatdown. In regards to Washington defeating the Raiders 41-24 yesterday, is kind of bittersweet with the injuries. Not saying it's a bad thing what happened yesterday, but you're walking away having a couple questions. Well, we thought we'd bring in very good friend of this show, Mr. Ryan Fowler. Thank you for joining us this late evening, sir. How are you doing?
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me as always. It's been a little bit. It's been a little bit, but it's good to be back on with you guys.
Absolutely. Before we get into the negative parts of yesterday, but we have to talk about the awesome things about it. Washington wins 41-24, and at one point it was 10-10, and everyone was saying that there's no reason for it to be 10-10. Everyone wanted to shoot Matt Gay to the moon. They wanted him on a rocket ship and out of the atmosphere. But overall, after the end of this, Ryan, what does this win say about Washington?
Yeah, I think one thing, Kyle, that was big was yesterday showcased the depth of this roster, which they've been trying to build here over the last few years. I would say last two since the whole prior regime has been out the door a little bit. I think that's what showcased yesterday. I think I maybe was one of those guys that wanted to shoot Matt Gay to the moon yesterday afternoon, Kyle. I'm getting a little frustrated with him a little bit right now. As you guys know, the kicker situation hasn't really been settled since Dustin Hopkins left years ago. But overall, it really did showcase the depth. And at the end of the day, when you can score 41 against the Raiders that has, face of the franchise type of guys, Max Crosby, Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, they got some talent over there. And you have your backup quarterback in the game, and you score 41. That's pretty impressive to me. And you really did it in a way to where you looked at the Raiders and said, look, we're going to run the ball today with 4 or 5 guys. Either you can try to stop it or we're still going to do it. That's what they did in week 1 that worked. Now they've done it in week 3 and it worked. They allowed Jaden to rest. And really the depth showcased for me throughout that ball game. That's really what impressed me most yesterday.
Yeah, and obviously it was one in the trenches. I put this on Twitter last night. The Raiders came in 4th in the league in rushing yards allowed. And obviously on the ground through sacks as well. They gave up, I think, 3 the first week, 4 the second week. And Washington got 5 on them. And that game definitely was won in the trenches. Sorry, Hall.
Yeah, and you mentioned the depth on the team and how they've been trying to build that. A guy that's been a holdover from that old regime is Chris Paul. He's a depth piece that stepped in and played his ass off, honestly. Just kind of talk about what you saw from him and kind of on the side. Do you think that that's his job to lose right now, or do you think that was just hey, Brandon Coleman, get your head out of you-know-what, or this guy's going to take your job?
Yeah, Mike, I'm really glad you brought up Chris Paul. I know he's obviously been a focal point the last 24 hours or so, but even looking over the last few years, the attention for even his family was on his damn brother, Patrick Paul, coming out of Houston, a better prospect. He's more athletic. He's this, he's that. And Chris has hung around from the Rivera regime. There's not many left of those guys. It's really just him mainly and Quan Martin. And you look at him and say, look, Brandon Coleman, look, you're tackle versatile, you're guard versatile, but competition, it never hurts. It never does. And for Chris, it obviously had a hell of a summer. Training camp preseason was excellent. He fits the body type that Cliff Kingsbury wants up front as far as those wide-bodied players that can seal and displace guys and get your butt to either sideline and allow that running back to run right off your back hip. He did an excellent job yesterday. And then in pass pro, he pitched a clean slate. And that's really all you can ask next to Laramie Tunsil and Tyler Biadasz. So I think as of right now, for me, it was more of a move to Brandon say, hey, look, get your head out of your rear end a little bit. We expect a lot from you as a day 2 pick. They've probably said the same to guys like Ben Sinnott and Luke McCaffrey. But at the end of the day, if we move forward into Atlanta next week, where I know they're going to run the ball at that front and they think Chris is the best option, then I don't mind putting Chris Paul in the football field and allowing them to compete. And then you throw in Sam Cosmi again there at right guard, and you're going to have guys just competing for spots. And I think overall, Mike, that's what I overall just love about this roster right now, where you're having guys in the football field where snaps are never given. They're just earned on this roster.
Yeah, and then let's keep it on the offensive line. The first-round pick in Josh Connerly is really going through the fire in the first couple weeks here in the NFL season. Went against Max Crosby a handful of times. Did have some penalties, but he was fighting, man. And look, Al Davis said, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? And he
Yeah,
certainly was trying to keep his quarterback healthy in some of those cases. But overall, how did you think Josh Connerly did?
I think he did fine yesterday. Like you said, Kyle, this has been such a rough stretch the first 3 weeks. But then again, you're a first round pick. It's the NFL, and it doesn't get easy, right? And you drafted him for a reason to be that type of guy to protect Jaden's arm side for hopefully their plans are the next decade. So I look at it with a little bit of that context where, yes, I'm giving you some leeway against the Parsons, the Carters, the Burns, Thibodeau, Rashawn Garys of the world, and of course, Max Crosby yesterday. I give you a little bit of leeway there, but that leash at times has to be pulled a little bit. And I know we're still early in the campaign and him swapping from left to the right side, which is usually your atypical spot for more that road grader, Talise Fuaga type at the NFL level. But I thought he was just fine yesterday. And overall, I think he's going to be just fine as a right tackle for this team, not just in the next 4 to 6 weeks, but moving into the next 3 to 4 years of his career. Because everything for me, and I talked to you guys about this in the draft process, but everything starts with footwork. Everything starts with his technicality there. I think that's an excellent foundation for him, considering what this playbook wants to do in the ground game and in the passing game, and his butt getting outside even on screens. So I think he fits just well in what this offense is doing and how he's going to progress. And I thought he was absolutely just fine in week 3.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. One last question for me for the offense. Obviously, the hot topic of the week is going to be Jaden Daniels' knee. Is he going to play against Atlanta? Just knowing what Marcus Mariota is as a backup going back to last year and then what he put out there on Sunday, knowing how confident and how comfortable he is just in this system with Cliff and in this offense. Even if Jaden's cleared and he's healthy, are you erring on the side of caution saying, hey, let's just give him one more week and get ready for the big matchup out in LA? Or are you saying, hey, let's let Jaden rip, get him out there and get him going again? And because we all know he's chomping at the bit to get back out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Look, that's a great question. And it's nice to have that luxury too, right? I mean, I look across,
Been a
look at the
while.
Giants, look at Miami, look at Cleveland, Cincinnati right now with the Joe Burrow situation. I'll also say this, guys, I don't know if there's been calls made yet. I'm sure there's teams kicking the tires a little bit. But as we get closer to the deadline and Marcus is still QB2, and there's some teams out there that may be trying to stay competitive, I don't know also what's going on in the situation in Minnesota. I wouldn't be surprised if Washington maybe get some capital or something for Marcus Mariota if someone were to call for that situation. And they maybe get a late day 2 pick, high fourth, because of how much he's valued. Now, I'm not trying to break any news here, but just as far as his value to this roster. But at the end of the day, if Jaden is healthy, you roll with number 5 as your starter. That's just my opinion. But what else can you say, really, guys, about Marcus Mariota? I mean, the ability to come in whenever it's 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, it doesn't matter. He comes in, he operates like a professional, completes 15 of his 21 passes. He's still got juice in his lower half after being in the NFL for over a decade now. Yes, we don't want the fumble, but credit Thomas Booker on making that play. But overall, I'm just extremely impressed with him. The luxury that we do have, my opinion, the best QB2 in all of football. It's really nice to have him there. But if number 5 is healthy, get him out there. Let your Lamborghini run and put another 40 up on the board next week in Atlanta.
Yeah, if you were a fly on the wall in my house during that fumble, you would have heard me saying, sit your ass down, like I was talking to one of my kids. Because
Yeah,
obviously, just get down, man. As soon as that
yeah.
contact, I know you want to score. I love the competitor in you, Marcus, but that would have been really nice to be able to separate ourselves just a little bit more, Ryan. Now, my question to you, Ryan, let's bring it to like a bounce back type of game. This you're gonna have a plethora of guys to be able to choose from, but really, who had the most and best bounce back game coming off of the Green Bay kind of disappointment?
I'm not going to say Marshawn Lattimore, guys. I'm not. He's still in my doghouse, and I want to see it against a capable offense. It's just every time we see him out there, but and I know he was fine yesterday. Um, Overall, I mean, I'll say the offensive line, just their ability to stick with their guns, where the offense stems from is the ground game. I know it's fun to drop back 40 times and watch Jaden dissect everybody at every level, or yesterday, Marcus. But the offensive line's ability, when you're able to look at a front 4, front 5, whatever they want to do in front of you and say, we're going to run through your chin strap and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. that's just taking somebody's will. And football in general is just, it's legalized violence. It's legalized assault. The ability to go up with somebody and beat their ass for 60 minutes, and you can do it and then walk off the field and shake their hand or swap jerseys.
You
So
sound like me at practice today, Ryan.
so I'm just trying to credit the big boys a little bit up front because guys, the big boys never get enough attention. So I'm gonna give credit to the big guys up front for getting after it. 200 plus yards in the ground again yesterday. And that's really where they're going to stem from. I don't care if it's 85 degrees outside or really when we get to the end of this year, hopefully a long playoff run when it's 20, 30 degrees outside. The run game always translates.
One of the craziest stats I saw from the game, Washington's offense had more rushing first downs than they did passing. One more that they had, but just really going to show the balance of it. And I know a reporter asked Dan Quinn, his presser, like, what did the run game kind of do for you in the passing game? And, like, that's exactly why you want to have that balanced attack. And being able to run the ball the way that they did against a pretty good front, I mean, that says a lot about what they were doing.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Yeah, Cliff definitely schemed up definitely a good game, called a good game yesterday. There's been a lot of injuries piling up, obviously, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We'll know more about the injuries and the severities throughout the week, but are you concerned about the injuries starting to pile up so early in the season, or do you think it's if it happens now, hopefully they get the guys back down the stretch where it really matters?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because you guys know last year the Commanders were blessed with elite health all year long, and now here we are in week 3 and we can go through damn near 10, 15 names of guys that have either been in and out or, the Austins and Dietrichs and now Will Harris's of the world that are out for basically the rest of the season. I know Dan talked about Will with the broken fibula. We'll see about that. And Sam Cosmi can even throw into that bucket as well. But I think overall, it's concerning to a point, and I think in the secondary right now, I'm looking at a bunch of different guys to where Percy Butler, what's your role? Tyler Owens for me, I want to see him continue to be a versatile piece. Do you have to promote an Antonio Hamilton, who I know they brought up from the practice squad? Now Darnell Savage comes into the fold. What's he going to be? And I'm still looking on the outside, and I'm looking at Trey Amos. And for me, through 3 weeks, he's been Washington's best cover corner. So the injuries do scare me. I think we're going to be okay. This is where the depth's been tested. But I think overall, positional group specifically, that does scare me a little bit, guys, because we saw it in week 2 against a capable offense, is really the secondary right now.
Yeah, and credit the offensive line. They only gave up 1 sack on Sunday. And if you can go back to that Thursday night game, it seemed like Jaden was really having to run for his life, and that wasn't the case this past Sunday, which goes into question by Deluxe. That I'm going to ask it to you, Ryan. His question is, Coleman and Allegretti arguably get to second level better than Andrew Wiley. Do you think that they went with Paul and Wiley with more focus on pass protection, and could this be a game-by-game decision until Cosmi?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. That's really getting into the physics, if you will, the ins and outs, X's and O's of playing ball, really up front, what you want to do from a zone perspective, gap perspective, whether you want to attack teams inside the tackles, outside the tackles. And there's no question about it in my mind as far as if you want to attack teams on the perimeter, do I want a Brandon Coleman or a Chris Paul in my offense? And that's Brandon Coleman because of his versatility in his lower half. But if you want to live A to B and you want to live on a linear path, then that's Chris Paul. So I think there absolutely could be a game plan yesterday where you want to go north-south and in between the tackles. And then next week with Atlanta, you want to test those young edge rushers and Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. and their discipline on the outside. And you want Brandon to pull the perimeter around the backside of Laramie Tunsil. So it very easily could be a game-by-game approach. But I also think that's a great question because that's how coaches think. As much as we are discussing right now, is it Chris? Is it Allegretti? Is it Wiley? Who are we thinking? It could be very simple. Hey, you want a bigger, more physical body right now that we know can win A to B. And then we're going to open up a little bit Brandon Coleman, allow him to use his athleticism moving forward.
Absolutely love it. Now, Will Harris fractured his fibula, which is unfortunate. DQ did not give a time frame. I know in our Discord, Tim Towner made a comment of 4 to 8 weeks, which it could be. But they picked up Darnell Savage, and, you are a lot like me, and like you really loved the draft and going and watching a bunch of different players. So what out of the college, what was Darnell Savage really good at? And then like with Jacksonville, was it possibly just a scheme misfit, or was he just not playing up to the level that was expected?
Yeah, I think bottom line, there's context needed on Darnell Savage, right? There's a reason why he wasn't on a roster. I'll say that. I think looking at his game a little bit, I don't want to bring up this name and scare people away because we just saw him on Sunday, but I think there's a little bit of Jeremy Chin to his game, but I do think he is better in coverage. The reason I say that, he's not afraid to hit downhill. He's not afraid to be that extra body in the box. Now, when they brought in Will Harris, they said, hey, look, we want you to be that thumper on the back end and provide a little bit more pop and coverage. And I think Darnell can do that. He's been around the block, a guy local, as you guys know, from Maryland. So we all watched him basically growing up, if you will. In Green Bay, the guy was absolutely everywhere. I mean, at times even bumped into the slot. He could shut down tight ends. I don't know if he still has that same pop and versatility and the fluidity in his hips and the top end speed. If we had him out there last week to shut down a Tucker Kraft type, but I think he's going to be a competitive type of ball player to where maybe next week he plays 25 to 35% of the snaps and just has a role of maybe shutting down Kyle Pitts a little bit or getting involved downhill. But overall, he's a player that is not afraid to compete at all three levels and come in and strap up and just really get after people in the ground game, fill those alleys downhill. And really, in my mind, this is a look to Quan Martin, to Percy Butler, potentially even Tyler Owens to say, look, you guys are going to be the players that we're really going to ask to play that high number to number, hash to hash typical role that we wanted you to do when obviously Will Harris was healthy.
Yeah, definitely. Going into this game against Atlanta on Sunday, obviously they had the stinker against Carolina, so offensively they're going to be looking to bounce back. We know about Drake London and Bijan Robinson. Do you think? And we're pretty sure that Marshawn's going to be on Drake London, so that's going to be a good test of kind of where he's at post Packers game. But
If he plays.
I think Dan Quinn said he was clear from concussion protocol, so I think he'll be out there, but we'll see. But either way, do you think that it's more important to kind of hold Bijan on the ground like they've been doing to kind of these running backs and not say let Drake London eat, but kind of just let him do his thing on the outside, but worry about Bijan Robinson? Or is it more important to stop that deep threat of Drake London so it doesn't open up the running game for a guy like Bijan Robinson?
Yeah, I could care less how many catches Drake London gets. Really, I mean, if he has 15 targets, 10 catches for 80, 90 yards, I think that's maybe what you want to hold him to, keep him out of the end zone, and force Michael Penix to hit somebody else. Because I think yesterday, what Carolina did a great job of, with obviously J.C. Horn would be the number one corner on this roster for me, in my opinion. We don't have a J.C. Horn right now. But at the end of the day, you got to stop Bijan and this offensive front that's going to be better than they were against Carolina. I think Washington, bottom line, has a better front than Carolina, both, the defensive line and linebacker level. So limit him up front. That's where their offense stems from. Obviously, he's going to be involved in the passing game as he was the back end of last year. I think there's some similarities in what they want to do. I know they moved Zach Robinson from the booth down to the field so he can be beside Michael when they're off series, which is important for them. But as I've said it before with Michael Penix, if you can get pressure in his face and force them to chase the ball game and throw it 35 plus times, he's not going to beat you outside the pocket. He's going to make mistakes with his arm because he has that arm arrogance that he wants to fit it in every single tight window possible. And as you saw against Carolina, it flat out didn't work. So I think you allow Drake London to maybe beat you a little bit on the outside, try to limit him, if you will, but also just main thing, stack the box a little bit, force Bijan Robinson to just not get going like they similarly did with Ashton Genty in week 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Honey Bijan mustard, as Hall likes to say, of course. But we saw him last year. That guy in a phone booth, he can shake you out of it. Somebody you got to keep your eye on, of course. And we saw what Kyle Pitts did last year, and that might be a big emphasis for Atlanta going against us and knowing that Will Harris was kind of like the tight end masker. Now without him, maybe that is an area that they are going to go at, and hopefully Jeremy Reeves can answer the call. But to wrap this up, Ryan, only a couple more questions for you. If you had to pick an undercover hero of the game yesterday, who's back now in civilian clothing? Who changed out of their costume?
Oh man, underrated guy from yesterday. I'm gonna give it to Javante Jean-Baptiste
He had a
yesterday.
sack. Good job.
Yeah, he got a sack, and I know that's flashy, but he's just another young guy where you spent capital on him, and you're giving him an opportunity to compete. You always know what you're going to get out of Notre Dame edge rushers. Sometimes they're not the most twitchy Micah Parsons types coming out of school, but if you're able to set the edge and you're well coached and you're a physical ball player with the length that fits what you want from a threshold perspective in the draft and what Adam Peters likes in his edge players because you see all the big boys that the Commanders have up front. You give him an opportunity, and I thought he did well yesterday. And I will even give a shout out to Eddie Golden, who I think has been pretty damn good so far through the first 3 weeks.
Absolutely has been. Even go back to the preseason, he's been showing up and being
Yes.
very stout in the run game and being a force. My next question for you, in regards to the wide receivers, was there a big change in, like, everyone likes to talk about the separation from these wide receivers, and it's always a topic when we're losing games, but not so much when we're winning them. Do you think that there was a big difference in the separation of the wide receivers in this game?
I don't think so. I just think a little bit maybe was the route concepts. Everything really lived in the intermediate areas.
Thank
And when
you.
you have Jaden and you want to stretch things a little bit, it makes it tough because you don't have the time, then nobody's open. It just makes it tough on the whole entire offense. So I think it really was the route concepts of what Cliff schemed up. But I will say this, holy hell, Luke McCaffrey finally showed up. It's great to see number 11. I'm happy for him. I don't know if he's a part of the future, guys. I mean, it's fun seeing him kind of hit the ball and get frustrated after a special teams play. But Chris Moore's outplaying him. Jalen Lane took one back 90 yards yesterday. He's outplaying him. So I'm happy for him to get in the end zone. But overall, I think moving into next year as well, maybe another young piece on the outside is in the cards for this Commanders group.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see that. To add, hopefully Jalen Lane takes that next step and
Yeah.
adds to that group as well. But something you said just actually kind of triggered a question in my head. You mentioned how we got Jaden Daniels back there. Cliff, you want to open it up a little bit more just because Jaden Daniels is that much better and that guy. But seeing how the offense was not really stagnant the first couple 2 weeks, but just wasn't really flowing like it was on Sunday or like it was last year. Do you think that kind of made Cliff sit back and say, "Hey, let me just get back to the basics and kind of just not really start over, but like let me kind of install this game plan for Jaden, kind of build off of that," or do you think he's gonna Jaden get back out there and just open and wide open again for the offense?
No, yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, even looking back to last year, right? You look at the Tampa game to start out the year, everything was horizontal raid, and then as the games went on, it was slowly opening up and expanding the playbook a little bit to where not only you were hitting teams east west, then you're hitting teams in the ground game north south, and then you're popping it over the top. And then now I think maybe sometimes Cliff, when you have that type of player, where we've seen it with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, where sometimes you're just asking them to do so damn much under center and put everything on their shoulders to where sometimes it is nice to say, hey, Chris Rodriguez, Bill Krosky Merritt, Jimmy McNichols, here's 25 carries. Let me just sit back a little bit. So hopefully this week, Mike, bottom line, and looking back to week one to say, look, Cliff Kingsbury, yes, you got a Lamborghini under center, Jaden Daniels, and I think all of our opinions, maybe a future MVP under center. But at times, just allow the ground game to build this thing up as teams want to live in cover two, run the ball well, and as they begin to come up, allow Jaden to use his legs, and then hit your guys over the top and your Terry McLaurin's, Debo Samuels of the world. And even those crossing routes, I really like these first 3 weeks with Debo, with Chris Moore, that's really shown up, Noah Brown if healthy, and then they're going to get Jalen Lane more involved here in these next few weeks. So just continue to run the ball well, and I think you're exactly right, Mike, and just allowing do what you do best, not get too tricky, even though Jaden Daniels is, I think we all know what he is under center.
Yeah, and we certainly saw Debo in the Wildcat, which was another wrinkle in the
Yeah.
offense we got to see. But to add on to that question, I'm not trying to disparage anybody or anything like that, but Cliff and the quarterbacks have both said that Cliff likes to allow the quarterbacks to kind of dictate what gets called and what doesn't. Do you think that Mariota might have more of an okay or an accepting mindset with most of those plays that we saw on Sunday, and maybe Jaden possibly isn't?
Um, I think that's a good question. I think that's a great hypothesis potentially, Kyle. But I will say this, I think with Marcus's grasp of NFL offenses and the time that he's been around, I definitely think even looking back to last year when you faced Carolina and Dallas when Marcus was primarily under center, he still lived in that 20 to 23 passing attempts
Right.
range. So they really still wanted to ground, or
Yeah.
just drive the ground game. I don't think Jaden's just going to him and saying, hey, look, I don't want to run this.
Right.
Unless there's a specific look where he's like, look, we got to target this guy. I think he's still saying, look, Cliff, I trust your plays. Let's run it here. But it's funny sometimes, guys, too, because Kyle, it is such a good question. Because sometimes you look at Jaden and he's always smiling. He's like, is this guy ever pissed off?
Right.
Is he pissed off on the football field where he doesn't like something? If it doesn't work, if you get a 3rd and 9, he runs out of bounds, you're like, why are you smiling right now? Because that didn't work. You know what I mean? So I think it's a good question, but I think both of them support what Cliff is doing. And of course, if you're winning, we're always going to agree with what Cliff is doing.
Absolutely. One thing I do know about Jaden is that he wouldn't be smiling on the sideline when he's getting his face beat in, like another quarterback in his draft class from last week. But my last one that I do have for you, sir, if you had to give an MVP for this game.
Ooh, I like that. MVP for the football game. Um, Man, I wish I could give it to multiple people. Let's go Chris Paul. Let's go Chris Paul. And the
Okay.
reason why I say that is because I love seeing guys take advantage of an opportunity. I don't care what sport, I don't care what level. If you're able to step up at an opportunity to where Brandon Coleman, I think we all were a little shocked that not only was he out, but you're a healthy scratch.
Very,
Sometimes we see
very.
that in hockey or a lineup in baseball or basketball, but healthy scratch for a kid that's played a lot of ball for the Commanders the last now 2 years. I'm going to give my MVP for Chris Paul, stepping in, acing your test with flying colors next to two big time veterans in Tunsil and Biotish, in my opinion, at their position, both top 7 players in football. So my MVP yesterday goes to Chris Paul for not only taking advantage of an opportunity, but forcing this coaching staff to say, is this K our future in 2025? Or do we have to look back to Brandon Coleman again? I'm very, very proud of Chris Paul.
I
And
like that answer.
I'll be honest, like I've been kind of hard on the AP, basically in saying that are you going to be as hard on Debo if he were to have a big productive a year like Terry did, and given with a new contract, are you really going to be as hard on Debo as you were on Terry, right? And
Yeah.
basically saying that your favorites, your guys, are you going to be hard on them? They go out and they let go of Dom Hampton. They then go to Brandon Coleman and say, you're going to be a healthy scratch. They allowed Jalen Lane to get over top of Luke McCaffrey in the shares and targets. And I do give a lot of respect to them for holding true to the competition aspect of it all. I think they deserve a hat tip for that.
Agreed.
Ryan, before you get out of here, just like to plug your social media handle and your show, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on X if you don't follow me there already at _Ryan Fowler. And then my podcast, which is on all podcast platforms, is Commanding the Huddle, 2 episodes a week, potentially even more, depending on what happens. Always news and notes going around with the Burgundy and Gold. And again, that's Commanding the Huddle on all podcast platforms.
My man. Have a great night, brother. Enjoy the
Appreciate it.
game.
Absolutely. Thank you guys as always. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, man.
Okay,
All right,
sure.
everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Ryan Fowler. Glad that he was able to come in here. I thought he had a very good answer to that question regarding Jaden Daniels. It's something that I've been thinking about. It's not much more so like on a play-by-play basis. It's much more so based on like against certain coverages, what you are comfortable with, what routes are being called against it. Does that make sense?
Right. Like, yeah, it goes into like the game plan for the week, basically.
Exactly. Being able to open things up for you. Maybe Mariota just has a little bit more opening up for him and just comfortability or whatever. Because against Green Bay, I'm gonna be honest, everyone was screaming about like the separation and everything. But it's like, is there really that deep of stuff being called? Because it seems like they're adjusting to what's happening on the offensive line. And that's
Right.
that they got to get the ball out of their hands freaking quickly, dude, or something's going to go
Exactly.
terribly wrong.
Exactly.
But now let's go to our fan questions to wrap up this show. And by the way, if you have any questions, Phil, if you want to give your undercover hero of the game, if you want to give a game beer to a player who deserves a shout out, please send it into the YouTube chat. We'll read it out loud here, of course, for everyone to hear. But this first question was submitted by the Colonel Hall. Last season, we were fortunate to avoid the injury bug. Our latest loss, Will Harris, is worrisome, especially after losing Austin, Eckler, and Dietrich Wise for the year. Do you see AP going into his bag of tricks to get quality replacements for these significant losses?
I think it all depends on. Well, obviously, you talked about guys like Will Harris who are going to be down for at least probably 6+ weeks. So, yeah, I think. Well, and we saw that he went out and already got a guy in Darnell Savage who has ties to Justin Simmons going back to their Green Bay, or I think it might have been their Green Bay days, or they crossed paths somewhere along the line.
Jason
where,
Simmons?
or Jason Simmons, yeah, Jason Simmons. Yeah, Justin Simmons is the other safety in
Freudian
free
slip
agency.
there because I think he's available.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was thinking about the other safety that's available in free agency, but yeah, they crossed paths somewhere along Darnell Savage's and Simmons' career, and Simmons used to coach him, so it seemed like an easy fit. A guy that can just plug right in, hopefully, and make a couple plays here and there. But as far as other positions go, I think that they're just going to rely on the roster that they have right now and the depth that they have right now, and just kind of see how that goes. And I mean, obviously, if the injuries keep on piling and stacking up, like eventually you're going to have to go out there and sign some guys off the street and whatnot. But as of right now, I think they're going to go with like the in-house route and see what they got in-house.
Yeah, and tell Courtney I said hello. I think her kitchen looks beautiful. Uh, I do think that Hall is onto it there a little bit, Colonel. Like, I think at this point, you could say that safety is probably one of the more depth-filled ones, especially with, like, special teams contributors and guys that deserve. Like, Jeremy Reeves came up, made a huge hit on Genty. He has proven when he gets on the field, good things happen. But Dan Quinn also brought up the fact that especially on like plays like punt, like Dan Quinn said this, it takes a lot of energy on punt, and Reeves is heading that unit. So you don't want to lean too much on Jeremy Reeves of heading the punt unit and then having to come on the field right after. You kind of need to have a mixed bag of guys to be able to help contribute there, and that's why adding somebody like Darnell Savage, who maybe not be the whole starter throughout like the whole entire game, but could easily fill in there until Jeremy Reeves is probably caught his breath a little bit and able to get in there, because you do have to be cognizant. You don't want to overwork other guys. But I will say that you're always looking to improve, and especially if you lose somebody like Will Harris, who's a very good contributor and a starter for your football team, you're going to be looking around the league. You're going to be looking for possible guys to come in here. If the price range is right, if it's the right situation, kind of guy that meshes and you had a high value on that somehow slips through the cracks, yeah, you go ahead and pull it. Do I think that that's going to happen? I would say it's far-fetched, because if they're that good, most likely a team's not letting them go. Good safety is hard to get nowadays. So, but I would say is let the guys who have grown here, blossomed here, get their opportunity, a lot like Chris Paul. Let the competition drive it, and let them be the ones to dictate who gets it and who doesn't. Next question from the Colonel. Hall, our running game was exceptional, but what's your opinion of our wide receiving core? Is it a potential position of weakness for us?
If it's like when it comes to injuries and like the depth of the position group, then I would say possibly yes, because like I said, the injuries, we already see Noah Brown out with the injury, but on the plus side, you see guys like, even though it's kind of garbage time and whatnot, whatever, but a guy like Luke McCaffrey steps in there and his number's called, he gets open, he makes a play, scores a touchdown. A guy like Jalen Lane, who, like Ryan said, I think they're going to start working a little bit more into the offense. You see what he does with the ball in his hand when he gets in like open space. So I know Cliff is looking at that like, okay, how can I do that on the offensive side of the ball? Get this kid a little bit more involved. So injury concern wise, I would say, yeah, it's a little it might be a position of weakness and concerning. But as far as the frontline guys, we know Terry, we know obviously what Debo's done the first 3 weeks. And when Noah Brown is healthy, he is a guy that is very, very physical in the run game and does make contributions in the passing game as well. I know last year he was leading the league in pass interference yardage down the field. So, yeah, hopefully Noah Brown gets back soon. Hopefully guys like Jalen Lane, McCaffrey continue to step up. Obviously, we still got Zach Ertz commanding the middle of the field. No Yak Zach is looking like semi-Yak Zach now. So, yeah, hopefully they keep progressing with the passing game.
Leave my old white brother alone, all right? It's hard to get good help around here.
Hey, man. He's doing this thing.
It's not a potential position of weakness. I think the Green Bay game kind of is showcasing that for everybody, like, oh, it's wide receiver legit thing, the separation aspect. But we do have to take into consideration when the offensive line allows a play to develop, when you run the ball sustainably, effectively, it opens things up downfield, i.e. that Luke McCaffrey touchdown, i.e. the Terry McLaurin big catch that should have been a touchdown. Those are evident by what the on-the-ground game is doing. And if you don't have that threat of the ground game, if you don't have the ability to pass protect, the quarterback can't really diagnose it because they're paying attention to what's happening in front of them. They start seeing ghosts. And so I think that just like last year, we had to take into consideration everything is okay. We have the right unit. Like, yes, we might not have the best wide receiver unit in the league, but you can win with this unit. And I think that's the question that needs to be answered. Can you win with this wide receiver unit? And I definitely think that we can, especially when you're running the ball well. Now, if we're not running the ball well, it's going to be kind of difficult for any passing attack to be able to do that. But if you have Jaden Daniels at the helm, it kind of helps you balance the scales just a little bit in that regard.
And to your point, like if you go back to even last year, like you could say that on paper, it's a lesser group that was on the roster last year as far as wide receivers go, and we saw week after week, Cliff was scheming those guys open, no matter who the team was and who the opponent was. So,
Right.
and that was all based off of the running game and Brian Robinson, who's not here no more, Jaden Daniels, guys like that, doing their thing. So, like you said, when they're running the ball and being able to gash the defense for 4 or 5 plus yards a game in average, we saw like in New York and we saw against Oakland, that opens up the middle of the field, it opens up the downfield stuff. So, like you said, hopefully Cliff kind of keeps that in the back of his mind, like, hey, everything is based off of the run game.
Yeah, and I would really go beyond to say you guys need to go to my Twitter feed and look at the latest thing I retweeted, because Daron Payne literally killed a guy. I don't know exactly which player it was. But it was a wide receiver trying to come back and block him, and the guy wasn't even a speed bump. It's like a semi truck hitting a cone.
I think that was Geno Smith that he like just
Was it Geno? Oh my gosh,
yeah,
dude!
That
guy's
was Geno trying to throw a block for his running back going outside. And,
oh my gosh!
Yeah, he just Daron contract year. Daron Payne obliterated him.
It wasn't even a speed bump. That guy's got a family, and you had to watch that. That was insane. Now, a comment by Deluxe or a question. Did notice that Reeves and Owens both got time. Percy banged up too. Had to add a safety. That's absolutely right. But it was also because of the corners that were banged up. Marshawn was banged up, wasn't in the game. Amos wasn't in the game as well. So they were kind of running out of corners, and so they literally had to bring a safety down to act as a corner. And you can, if you notice back at the game flow of the play-by-play, you'll see that they started getting more passing plays and being more successful on them later in that game. Well, it's because we had more safeties on the field because all of our corners were banged up. Thankfully, Mikey was still in there fighting and churning, of course. Now, the next question from the Colonel Hall. Personally, I don't want to see Marcus Mariota on the field again this season. He could easily be a starting quarterback on a dozen other teams. How has he not gotten poached? Tavita Pritchard, I would say, for one.
Yeah, but also I think it really just, I mean, people look at last year and they can say, oh, it's just a system, da-da-da-da-da, but honestly, you could say that about probably 80% of the quarterbacks in the league is the system as opposed to like the top end talent. But
my question is, all these people that are saying it was the system, why it happened last year, why Marcus is doing well, how come it didn't work out for Kyler Murray? How come when we first got Cliff Kingsbury, everyone was going to say he's going to do well for the first month and then fall off after that? All of a sudden now it's the system? Come on,
man. Exactly. No, but I do, to answer the question, I think it goes back to the Netflix thing where like he kind of like quit on Atlanta and like left the team, and it was all kind of like weird and all that stuff. And people around the league kind of looked at him like a bad, not like a bad locker room guy, but like just kind of looked at him like, okay, well, he's not a starter anymore, as far as like he was already kind of like a back end starter on his way out of Atlanta at that point in time of his career. So I do think that the rest of the league kind of just had that lasting image of his Atlanta days, and we're like, he's kind of done.
He literally left the team.
Exactly.
If you walk off on the job site,
everyone's gonna be looking at you side eyed, like, really?
When you get that, when they call your reference and they call back to that job and say, what happened? Well, he just walked off the job on us one day. Everyone's gonna be like, all right.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of the people around the league had that lasting image and that lasting thoughts about Marcus Mariota, and like I said, the quarterback play wasn't the best at the time, but even he's talked about like he's in a better like mental space now, and and a lot of that goes into how comfortable he is here. So that's why you're seeing a better, more kind of younger version when he was in Tennessee, kind of Marcus Mariota. So yeah, I do think that after this year he's on a 1-year contract. I do think he'll get some calls in the offseason about like, especially a lot of people are already putting him and Cliff kind of together as a package. Like,
that's exactly what Deluxe said, that Cliff is going to take him with him.
Package deal as far as like when Cliff gets his next team, he can teach my next young quarterback the offense like he did to Jaden Daniels. But I mean, Marcus is doing his thing. I'm definitely, like Ryan said, he's definitely easily the best backup in the league. So I'm glad that he's here.
Yeah, one thing I will say is that why has he not gotten poached? Probably because teams aren't offering enough for his
Yeah, I
services.
mean, if someone offered him a third or a fourth, they'd be like, Marcus, we love you, but you got to go.
But he did resign this offseason, didn't he? Like, I do think that he legitimately likes being here. And I think that he did covet being almost a mentor to Jaden and kind
So
of learning.
they were talking about this earlier on the radio. I forget who it was. I think it was JP Finley, actually. He was saying that going into the offseason, Marcus kind of made it clear to like the front office, like, hey, if I have the opportunity to go compete somewhere for a starting job, then if it's like something I want to do, then I'm going to pursue that. But if not, I would love to come back here. So I don't think that he really got the calls that I guess he was expecting based off the couple games that he played. So he was like, I mean, I have no problem coming back. So that's why he's back here again. Now teams are looking at it like, okay, a little bit more of a sample size. Maybe we can kind of bring him in as a bridge guy and see what happens. So we'll see.
Yeah. Now, this next question in the Discord from Tim Towner. Is Chris Moore now clearly ahead of McCaffrey on the depth chart? Luke is more like an Ed McCaffrey than a Christian McCaffrey. He is also contributing on special teams.
If he was Ed McCaffrey, that'd be tight. Ed McCaffrey was a beast back in the day.
Well, he was also on roids, so.
Yeah. But different receivers, too. He was more of like a deep threat 50-50 guy down the field. But anyway,
Luke is, yeah.
yeah,
Luke is more like his mom. I'm pretty sure his mom was like a sprinter. So,
yeah, he's more of like a speed shifty guy.
Yeah.
I think just like Dan Quinn was talking about the guard position going forward, it's a week to week competition type of thing. Like go out and earn it. I think just like with the wide receiver position, I think that they want it to be Luke stepping up and kind of rising through the depth chart because they drafted him. And obviously, you spend a top 100, 150 pick on a guy, you want to kind of keep him in your system, develop him, and see where it goes. But yeah, I think it's a week to week competition type of thing, and if Luke keeps progressing, putting in the work in practice and showing them that he's more comfortable in the system, it's only his third year playing wide receiver, so he's kind of learning on the job type of thing. So, I think if he keeps progressing, his snap count will go up, and you'll see him getting more involved in the offense.
I do think that, well, one thing is for certain that Luke McCaffrey did out-target Chris Moore by 1. It was 3-4. But maybe that has to do with the circumstances later in the game, Luke getting more run, of course. So I do think that they're probably on a similar sort of stature, which isn't great news for Luke, being a former draft pick. But they kind of knew that he was going to be groomed into this sort of thing. But it's just good for his confidence. And so I think that Scott, like, he could really use this momentum going forward, especially if Noah's going to be losing more time. Now, this next question from Tim Towner. I'll answer this one first. I heard this morning that Philly has won 19 of the last 20. The one loss was first Washington, but all 3 of their games this year have been close. Are they simply the best team out there, and the only reason we beat them was Hurts was concussed? You know, yes. Are they the best team out there? I'm not going to go as far as to say that. But I think that once their passing game starts getting up and running again, that's a good possibility that could be the case. But I also saw what happened to that secondary week 1, and they were Swiss cheese. And so that's something to monitor as well. Do I think they're the best? No. But they're like that guy that you hate in your fantasy football league that just continues to win games even though it's close. You're just like, I just want them to lose, Like, I just want them to lose.
Yeah.
And that was me, seeing the updates from the Rams-Philly game. And then to see them edge it out, it's just like, why? Like, why? Just please let them lose. But then at the end all be all, when it gets to the end, you'll get that satisfaction you've been craving. But honestly, it's not good for your soul to want bad for somebody else. I understand that completely and wholeheartedly. So I try to, I repent for those, of course, Tim. But I hope and I know that based on how this is going, if you start calling the tush push legitimately, you're gonna see the losses start tallying up. Slowly but surely, baby. I can promise you that. If you actually do what you say you're going to do. Like, it's gotten to the point where you're going to have a slow-mo cam on that line of scrimmage. Because literally, if you go back to each one of their games, there's a tush-push touchdown in there in every single one. And you're giving them when something they should have went back 5 yards for. They can't do the tush-push 5 yards out. Make them kick field goals.
Um, are they the best team in the NFL right now? I'd say they're probably in that grouping of like the Bills, Ravens,
Obviously.
Eagles. Like they're in that grouping of
But
like the best
the
teams. But
best.
see, the thing is, I hate to say this, obviously as a Washington fan, they don't got to be the best right now. All they got to do is just do enough what they've been doing to win games, and then once they get to the end of the season, like even with us, like, do we
You're
want to be
right.
the best
That's
team?
why I don't like what you
Do we
said,
want to
because
be
you're
the best team in
right.
the NFL right now, or do we want to be the best team in the NFL come December into January when
Well, you want to be
the
the best team in the
wins?
NFL every Sunday on
Of course,
that Sunday
that's what I'm
coming
saying.
up.
So, like, is there chinks in the armor for Philadelphia right now? Of course, but you can also look at the Chiefs and be like, is there chinks in the armor? Of course. Do you trust that Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to be in the playoffs, in the mix in the playoffs, and then we'll see what happens when they get to the playoffs? Yes, and that's kind of how I look at, unfortunately, like the Eagles right now. Are they doing whatever it takes to win? That's what good teams do. Yes, but is there chinks in the armor? Yes, but come late December and into the playoffs, I expect them to be fully healthy or healthy enough and playing their best football when it matters, just like hopefully we will be.
Start calling the tush push correctly, okay? You can't tell me that wasn't a
It's weird
touchdown
that
by
they call it
Terry.
weird. They call it fair, or they call it fairly for the Saints, but then it comes to the Eagles, they don't ever do it for them. It's
It's
really
insane.
very,
They
very
say they're
weird.
going to watch it closely, but then not when it comes to them. Apparently all you need to do is win a Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden, like you can do no wrong. You know, like Jordan,
I
like
guess I don't know.
what's his face, gets spits at Dak Prescott, and they're like, oh no, he already served his suspension. Like, what are we doing here, dude?
Howie Roseman got
What
photos
is
of the other
going
GMs. I
on?
guess he got photos of the referees or something too. So I don't
Dude,
know.
he's got something. We need to investigate. We need the FBI to investigate that guy. He might be an undercover drug kingpin or something, hustling cocaine out of the Philly Stadium or something. That's what Big Dom is for. I'm telling you, look into it. Now, the next question we have was submitted by Tim Towner, and this was a good one. What team has the biggest surprise you've seen in the league so far this season? Indianapolis?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I would say Arizona Cardinals. I know there was a lot of hype around like them coming into the season and all that stuff, but I've actually been kind of surprised at how Kyler and especially their defense has kind of played the first couple weeks of the season. Now, if Kyler can just be a little bit more consistent, I think they might be able to contend for a playoff spot or maybe like a wild card. But yeah, and also Seattle too. Didn't expect Seattle to come out the gates firing like this. Also,
That's fair. I think two teams deserve consideration for it. The San Francisco 49 for the same reasons. San Francisco 49ers, I know it's not a really big surprise, but just with how many injuries they've had, and they've
he's
won
got
3
another one
games.
too. Nick Bosa just tore his ACL, so
Right.
he's done for the season too.
They've continued to win games. It's pretty insane that they're doing this with their backup quarterback. Obviously, we just did it this past weekend, but 3 games, that's pretty nuts to think
Yeah.
about with all the injuries of wide receiver.
Mac Jones.
Yeah, and then the other one is Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay themselves are just riddled. I mean, I think they only have their starting center out there right now on their offensive line. They have their own
No.
issues, and they continue to win.
You know what's funny about that? Everyone's applauding them for coming back these first couple 3 weeks and all these tight, close games and wins that they're getting. And man, they're really just one of those top teams in NFC.
I know where you're going with this.
But when we did it last year, and it was, that's inconsistent. It's unsustainable. That's all luck. Da 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 da. Just pointing it out. I don't know. I'm not saying nothing. I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah, and the other one I'll say is on the negative side is the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, you're seeing other teams lose their quarterbacks and still being able to churn out some stuff. My goodness, Joe Burrow should have definitely won MVP because, dude,
Another one.
I went against my pastor in fantasy this week, and he beat me because he had an injury to a running back. He had no other running backs, and guess who he scooped up? Cam Scatterbo.
Really?
So that's how I know he's a blessed man, because this man picked up Cam Scatterbo, and then Tracy whatever gets nicked out of that game, and here comes Cam Scatterbo, and
Yeah,
I
he
needed
had a good
Malik
game
Neighbors.
last night.
I needed Malik Neighbors to go off. Guess what? Dud. So it's
2
like, all right,
targets.
you got it, Lord. I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I know he's a blessed man. You got it this week, because that is
Another
insane.
negative one. That is really insane. Another negative one. Larry Tunsil's former team, the Texans. I'm surprised at how bad they've looked so far as well, especially like CJ Stroud. Thought he'd have a bounce back year coming off of the down year that he had last year, but it's even looking even more down this year. It's kind of crazy.
It's you know what, this goes back to our argument that we've had for many
What do they
years.
call it after sophomore year? What's your third year?
This goes back.
Junior. It's a junior year slump.
Goes back to my argument that I used to have with you all the time, and this was regarding Brandon Ayuk and needing weapons for a young quarterback. And I said that doesn't matter. It comes down to the quarterback. You need a solid defense and what? A consistent, good running game.
Well, I was going to say they have a solid defense, and
they do not have a running game right now.
They don't have a running game, exactly.
And that is what the big issue is for C.J. Stroud, is they need that running game.
Nico Collins, they don't really have, like, weapons. Like they got, you know what I'm saying?
They got my boy Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel. I mean, they got some weapons out there.
There's still rookies progressing, but I'm just saying, like, legit weapons compared to, like, what they had last year. But, yes, you're right. The running game is what's really, like, doing them in right now.
Yes. Thank you. So, last question we have is from Arch Deluxe. DQ mentioned that tight end, running back, D-line, and DB were the deepest rooms. How is it that depth performing with injuries to Bates, Eckler, Wise, Jones, Harris, Amos, Lattimore think that of all of them?
Well, I don't. He said that like post game.
Yeah, like how is this was like in preseason. He said that those were the positions with most depth. Now that we have injuries at those positions, how are they performing?
Okay, got you. Well, small sample size again, obviously, because we saw what after all the injuries racked up, what the secondary looked like, and who was out there, and you saw, and it was also like late in the game, like the game was out of hand, out of reach, but you did see the passing game for. Thank you, Garbage Time Gino, for slicing my fantasy team. You saw Geno Smith start to like move the ball down the field. Obviously, he was running open, blown coverages, and all that type of stuff. So it's going to be a work in progress if guys got to step in and are not used to playing in the limelight and playing on the big stage. But again, I'm just going to go back to it's only been a year and some change right now, but this coaching staff has showed me that they are willing to get the best out of any player that's on the field, no matter who it is, and they're willing to adjust to what that player does well. So we'll see how it all turns out injuries-wise as the week goes along, but I do have faith that the coaching staff, even though the talent might not be as high as we wanted out there, I have faith that the coaching staff is going to kind of even that or close the gap as far as like scheme and what they do best, bringing the superpowers out of them, as a DQ says.
I will say in regards to DB, like with DB, there is no depth. Like those three starting corners, that's our corner.
I was going to say it. You know, Jonathan Jones being on IR is definitely like a killer too, and that's what.
It's a big killer. So there's not much there and to help in that regard. But everywhere else, everywhere else has performed higher than expectations. And I've said this many times. I actually said this to a fellow coach last week. The team that you are at the beginning of the season is not the same team you are at the end of the season. And that's what we are seeing now, is things happen and you have to adjust. People have to step up to this table and swing their meat on the table. And that's basically what this tight end group has essentially done this past weekend with Ben Sinnott really coming in and even busting some heads at some point. I saw him bust a corner. I thought he decapitated the guy, blocking for an end around. I think it was for Mariota, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I saw Baldy was on Baldy's breakdown.
Dude, I thought he decapitated that guy. And the other ones being with D-line in particular. You know, like we lose Dietrich Wise, and the defensive line, again, looked dominating. Unlike the Packers game, I'm going to throw out the window. I don't think it matters anymore. But, like, really showcasing that they can continue that, and then
even then they were pretty decent in the run game. Like Josh Jacobs didn't have like that crazy of a game, but I mean it was just everything else.
We just had one sack, and that's what you would like to be able to pressure Jordan Love just a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
But like and then running back, I don't think you don't even have to say anything about the running back room and what they did this past weekend. One of the parents of our players actually went to Boise State. He said he went to Boise the same time that Jeremy McNichols did. He said McNichols is a fantastic person, just overall good human being.
Like a good guy.
Yeah, he seems very happy for him. And the way that he ran, it's just poetic that Jeremy Chin hits Debo helmet to helmet. I hear Mark Schlereth saying, well, he's not a defenseless receiver, so you're allowed to hit him in the helmet. Like, have you not been paying attention to what has been going on in the NFL the past couple of years, bro? They don't want to be liable for any medical
That man
expenses.
is still stuck in 90s football.
I know. Like, we can't use Stickum anymore, dude. I hate to break it to you, Mark. But, he does that and, is gloating about it and then literally comes up with the worst tackle attempt you have ever seen in your life to allow Jeremy McNichols to break 4 of them.
It's crazy. As that happened, I'm like, where have I seen that before? Oh, the last time you were on my team.
Right.
Literally.
Saquon Barkley brings up nightmares.
That's what I'm saying.
Literally,
last time I saw you on the field was that exact same play.
Yeah. So it's just poetic justice, end all be all, of course. But I think the running back room has done a phenomenal job. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, everyone's complaining. People are complaining about how many carries he got. You don't want to overwork him. You want to continue to let him be a lightning rod. And that is essentially what he is he's a little bit of the salt to the pepper. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to add too much salt. Too much salt will make it bitter. You know what I mean?
And to that point, they've already said that every time he touches the ball, he does great things, which you see that he does that, obviously. But the problem is what he does without the ball in his hands, which, again, being a 7th-round pick, not playing football your entire last year of college, basically, so it's going to take some time to get used to, the NFL protections and whatnot. So I think once he gets that down a little bit better, you'll see his uptick and carries start to go. But until then, it's going to be a committee.
DQ did say that he off the ball is doing exactly what they want.
Oh yeah,
I saw
him
and that he wouldn't be getting
blocks.
the reps if he didn't.
Yeah, I saw him pick up a couple of blocks mid-game, and I was like, all right, I see you.
Exactly. And then obviously C-Rod coming in, trying to make the most of his opportunities, of course. So for the running back room, you can't say anything bad about that group of guys, man. They definitely have the right type of humans to be in there for this sort of situation. And honestly, you're getting a 3-headed workhorse, and you have no idea which one's going to pop off on you. And you can kind of see why you keep them fresh. That Jeremy McNichols run is a perfect example, because if he would have been running a lot before then, there's no guarantee he would have been able to outrun those DBs for that touchdown. He might have gotten pulled down at the 10. So that's a good reason why you have the multiple headed monster there and being able to utilize. All right, everybody, that's going to be wrapping us up for this episode. I got to go to bed. I got to be up at 4 a.m. But, we do these late to be able to help out with Reed, so Reed could get on here because he works late, of course, but he couldn't be here tonight. So hopefully he'll be here on Friday. But if you made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. Thank you to the Colonel. Thank you, Tim Towner. Thank you to Deluxe. I really appreciate it, you guys. If you're still watching this, you're frickin' awesome. We love you. And we'll catch you on Friday for a full breakdown ahead of the Falcons game, which made some friends with Cash's best friend at T-ball and football. His name's Julio. His dad is a huge Falcons fan, and he named his son Julio Matthew. So his wife didn't realize why he named him that until afterwards. She's like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." But we're gonna go watch the game with them on Sunday, and he was like, "I hope Jade's not playing." I was like, "I don't know, man." I was like, "We'll see." I was like, "It doesn't matter, really."
I think he'll be out there.
It doesn't matter, each one. I think Mariota's coming in with a pissed off vengeance kind of attitude, and Jaden's going to be looking to make sure that he doesn't have to look over his shoulder. So either way, you're getting a motivated MFer behind center, and that's a good recipe for success, in my opinion. All right, everybody. We'll see you again on Friday. I'm Kyle.
Oh.
And we'll see you guys again on Friday. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of